From sneaky drug cheats to fighters throwing hands outside the cage. Today, we're diving into even more of the most insane controversies in UFC history. Let's get into it. Anderson Silva's steroid shock. Anderson Silva was supposed to be untouchable. The Spider. The GOAT. But then came UFC 183. Silva stepped into the octagon to face Nick Diaz after a long injury layoff. He won the fight, but the real headlines dropped days later. Silva had failed a drug test. Not one, but two banned substances showed up. Drostanolone and androstane, both anabolic steroids. His excuse? A sexual enhancement pill from Thailand. Fans were stunned. Silva went from untouchable to tainted overnight. He got suspended for a year, and many said his legacy would never be the same. When even Silva has a steroid scandal, nobody's safe. Greg Hardy's inhaler madness and UFC run. From the NFL to the UFC, Greg Hardy's career was already controversial. Domestic violence past, fast-tracked into prime UFC cards, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But at UFC Boston, Hardy pulled one of the most bizarre stunts ever. Between rounds, he grabbed an inhaler and used it mid-fight. Completely illegal. The fight result was overturned, and fans lit him up online. And that wasn't the end. Hardy also landed an illegal knee, missed weight, and put on multiple sloppy performances, yet kept getting push after push. For fans, it felt like the UFC was betting on chaos, and it backfired. This was the first time the UFC ever had to cancel a pay-per-view. UFC 151 was supposed to be Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson. Hendo got injured late, and Chael Sonnen offered to step in. But Jon refused. Dana White didn't hold back. He blamed Jon directly, calling it one of the most selfish moves in UFC history. Fighters lost paychecks, the entire card crumbled, and the MMA world turned on Jones for the first time. It was the beginning of his villain arc. A star with all the power and none of the consequences. CM Punk's MMA debut and disaster. The WWE star walked into the UFC cage with zero real MMA experience. He was given a co-main event slot at UFC 203. He got obliterated, taken down, punched into the mat, and submitted in 2 minutes. The UFC gave him another fight. Same story. 0-2 in the octagon. Fans and fighters felt like the sport was being cheapened. If you've got followers, we'll let you in. CM Punk may have been brave, but his run became a meme. And for MMA purists, it was an embarrassment. Mike Perry goes rogue. Mike Perry is a walking headline. He's dropped racial slurs live on camera, got into bar fights, and once showed up to a fight with only his girlfriend as his cornerman, who had no MMA experience. He screamed instructions like, "Hit him in the face, baby," while Perry took shots. After one fight, Perry literally told reporters he had tax problems and needed to stop fighting until he got his life together. The guy is chaos. Inside the cage, outside the cage, every appearance is a gamble. Paulo Costa and the wine excuse. When Paulo Costa fought Israel Adesanya at UFC 253, he looked flat, sluggish, no power. Got completely styled on and finished. After the loss, Costa revealed the wildest thing. He drank a full bottle of wine the night before the fight because of anxiety. Yup, broke fight camp with a hangover. Fans roasted him for weeks. The memes didn't stop. He later admitted it was a huge mistake, but the damage was done. Adesanya even made fun of him at press conferences after. Costa blamed the bottle, but fans blamed the mindset. Alistair Overeem, Uber Eam and the 14-to-1 ratio. There was a time when Alistair Overeem looked superhuman. Muscles on muscles. The guy looked like a boss from Mortal Kombat. But in 2012, things got sketchy. He showed up with a testosterone to epitestosterone ratio of 14:1, more than 10 times the legal limit. He was pulled from the UFC 146 main event, and the Overeem nickname was born. After stricter testing came in, Overeem shrunk down. Fans couldn't help but notice. He looked like a different person entirely. His rise and fall became a textbook example of the pre-USADA Wild West. Ken Shamrock versus Kimbo Slice. Total freak show. Bellator hyped it like the ultimate brawl. Legends, street versus cage. But the fight? A train wreck. Both Shamrock and Kimbo failed drug tests. Shamrock for steroids. Kimbo had elevated testosterone levels. The fight itself looked fake. Botched takedowns, weird striking. Kimbo KO'd Shamrock with a slow-motion punch. It was MMA's lowest point in terms of spectacle over sport. Fans called it a circus. Critics ripped it apart. And both fighters' legacies took a hit. Conor McGregor's bus attack fallout. We touched on it last time, but now let's talk about the aftermath. Conor threw a dolly through a bus window, injuring fighters like Michael Chiesa and Ray Borg. Lawsuits followed. Fighters pulled from the card. But the UFC used the footage in promos. Dana White called it disgusting, then put it in trailers. Money talks. McGregor got community service, but never lost his golden boy status. It was one of the ugliest moments ever, and still became a marketing tool. If you made it this far, you already know MMA is the most insane sport on the planet. Like, subscribe, and drop your favorite scandal in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.